Cup. Right now he's Robotoing Terry Funk in a bionic elbow. Sends him right out of the ring.
I realized you didn't know I was going to be here, so thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for that introduction. As a matter of fact, I don't have my wallet on me. You did leave out manager of the NWA Southern Tag Team Champions Jesse Barr and Adrian Street, but I'll still pay you, okay? Oh, that was a great way to start off. Jeez, I feel like E.F. Hutton just spoke here. Oh, you know, I'm blowed up now. That door is heavy. I thought I had an idea at dinner. I thought we'd do this question and answer a little bit differently. Instead of the way that we normally do it, you know, the boring question and answer and droning on and on, I thought we'd turn the whole thing around. And tonight, for the whole time I'm here, what we're going to do is a question and answer where I ask you questions and you answer them. I knew it'd get over. For example, and you, ma'am, and where are you from? Winston-Salem. So you drove down. And how's the weather up there? Well, really, it's good. It's good. And you, ma'am? Burlington. Been there many times. The coat factory. They have those. And you, sir? Some attractive shorts there and nice flip-flops. Where'd you get those? Are those what is it, Payless shoes? And you're from Greenville. Big, I know where you're from. You drove up also. What kind of car you got now? Cadillac. Excellent, excellent brand of automobile. American made. It's in the shop? How'd you get here? Oh, it came with him. Okay. See, this is going to go great because I haven't even got halfway down the first row. Take this and do something. Don't piss them off either. I got to be here for 2 hours.
We'll keep the sprites rolling. We have a microphone for you.
Oh, I thought I just yelled. Wait a minute. Can you see me? I just wore this suit for nothing. What is this? Besides that, what? Come here. Give me the. Is there a reason why I don't have a nice set? Maybe you've got a chair and I've got maybe a little desk and I've got a chair like the Tonight Show or David Letterman is. What am I, a whole banquet?
Who promotes this?
Oh, so now you're blaming the boss. Oh, you'll get paid. Nulty already. Hold on. Let's clean this place up a little. Would you take that?
Swear to God, that's not mine.
Ah, good heavens. Get this off here. Hold on. Take that. Let me hold this for a second. We'll just do a little rearranging here. Hold on. If this is like that door, we're going to be here a while. Hold on here. Is there a way to turn this around where we can sit there where we can see people? They can see me?
There's a chair right here.
Well, now you want me to fall off the corner of the stage. Hold on.
Put the chair on the table.
Then set it on fire and spread thumbtacks on it. Good heavens. Sweating? All right, I tell you what, just for the sake.
Make you a little higher there if you want to go higher.
I'm liking it. As a matter of fact, hold on here. Poor pre-planning leads to poor performance or whatever. Okay, Mark, sit right down. Oh, wait, my Sprite. Here, little fella. Okay.
That's a loaded question.
Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest referee in the history of professional wrestling, Tommy Young. The question what Tommy asked was, what would you like me to do? I think for the sake of this podium, if the folks out there, do we have a microphone for Tommy?
Yes, we do.
You see, there was a lot of thought that went into this, folks. We've been literally gearing up for this for months.
Production meeting for seconds.
Give Tommy the microphone, and if somebody has a question, and by the time we get finished with this, I doubt very seriously if any of you want to hear any more of this shit.
Here, Tommy, you take the chair, and I'll go to the floor.
Well, no, you're the host. He's the man with the roving microphone.
Oh, he's going to do the mic. Okay, well then,
Yeah.
swap.
Oh, for jeez. Now you've got the orange ball.
It's okay.
It works now. So.
It may have worked from the beginning. I'm not sure. All right, you want me to rove?
Yes, please. What's the crack? Tommy, you rove.
Terry's been drinking straight Crown.
Oh yeah, Terry's been drinking.
I took Terry. I'm here to assist you, Mr. Cornette.
You know, they said they wanted me to do late night. I didn't realize that everybody would be drunk except me. By the time I got here, I would have joined you. Now, by the way, I want to apologize ahead of time for my language. Is there anybody under 18 in the room here? Anybody under 18? Raise your hand. But you look older. Okay.
That's what Jerry Lawler says.
So, please excuse my language if I do happen to get fired up about anything. But here's the thing: if you go to see George Carlin, he's going to say a lot of worse shit, and the tickets cost more. Okay, so anyway, it's late night. What are we going to do? You're the host. You're the rover. I'm just standing here, sitting here.
Well,
little fella.
Here's what we're going to do. Tommy,
What, you been in a hospital? That nagging case of whooping belts just wouldn't go away, huh? Is there any reason we should even talk about wrestling? Isn't that a depressing subject anymore? Shouldn't we just have fun? You know,
a WrestlingClassics.com DVD to the first person who can stump Jim Cornette in music trivia.
now wait a minute, let's qualify this. Nothing of the last 15 years, because I'm not good on new shit, but if you want classic rock, oldies, etc., but
you also have to do a wrestling question, otherwise Greg Price fires us.
boy, that dropped there. Why don't we just start out letting them ask the questions that they'd like to ask, and then we'll respond to them in some type of derisive way.
Minutes.
Well, you didn't have the shit set up here. What about to come in here and set up like a flea market? I'm sweating like a daggum hooker in church, for God's sake. I'm doing all the work.
Okay, when you have your question, move to the end of the aisle, please. Tommy will not cross the camera. When you ask your question, Jim will answer it, which will give Tommy time to find the next person with a question. Move to the end of the aisle so Tommy doesn't have to climb over people. State your name.
Tommy is fine. He will take care of things.
State your name, social security number, and current reason why you never want to come back and see this shit again. You know, the funny thing is, you paid for this, folks. I'm telling you, it's really, I guess it's sad in a way. I'd be crying if I wasn't laughing.
Hi, Brian Dixon from Charleston.
South Carolina or West Virginia?
West Virginia.
Okay. Small smattering of applause for West Virginia, home of the black lung. Continue.
Just a question I don't know the answer to. I believe OVW was started by you and Danny Davis.
Yes.
Okay. And of course, everybody knows that you are not with OVW anymore, correct?
No, incorrect. I'm not with the WWE.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
You don't understand the question that you're asking, but you're asking me to explain the question that you want to ask for the benefit.
I think he wants to know why you were canned.
Tommy, one in the category. Take this ride with me, if you will. It's a very complicated situation. And by the way, you'll notice I'm in a good mood and I'm laughing, and this is actually tied into that because I got the monkey off my back. Ohio Valley Wrestling was founded in 1993 by Danny Davis. When I took the developmental program to my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, 6 years ago, I purchased a percentage of Ohio Valley Wrestling. So Danny is the majority owner, and I'm a partial owner of Ohio Valley Wrestling. The way the developmental program was set up originally is that the WWE, when they had contracted wrestlers that they wanted to train or to develop, they would send them to OVW because that provided them with a territory, with a place to go and have a wrestling school where they could train to wrestle, where they could do television, get experience doing interviews and having matches on TV, do live events where they could have experience working in front of people. And that was the basis for the developmental program. They contracted with Ohio Valley Wrestling to perform that service for their talent because they didn't have any in-house training system. I'm trying to figure out, without just showing everybody your contracts and our 1099s and tax forms, how to explain this incestuous relationship. Everything was moving along very smoothly until about a year or so ago, it became a situation where instead of contracting with another company to provide a service, basically the company that Danny Davis and Jim Cornette own in Louisville, Kentucky, that my name is on it, my face is on as host of the television program and as the booker, instead of being able to make the decisions in that company, which we own wholly and contract with this other company to perform a service for them, the other company that we contract with to perform a service wanted to basically make all the major decisions involved in the company that we own, which anybody who knows me kind of knows that shit probably wasn't going to fly for very fucking long. Because if they own it, that's their decision, and we're employees. If they wholly subsidize it, pay all the bills, that's their decision. And but if they don't, if they pay us to perform a service, but they are our biggest client, but not our only client, if I'm the booker, if I'm the television announcer, I want to be able to determine in my company, not in theirs, just in mine, who I use on television, who I don't, what I call them, whether they're baby faces or heels, certain little tiny details like that. Like when I go to television, I want to know who the fuck's going to be there. Because if I write their name down, boy, I tell you, could you turn the air conditioning on in here? Is that a thermostat?
No.
I'm going to get a nosebleed again before long. I'm wearing white. I do that every year when I come here. I get a nosebleed because I get all worked up and it's about 100 degrees up here. When I have talent that's working for me, we have to sell tickets. We have to, in OVW, we have to do business. We have to sell tickets. We have to put on a television show. And the bone of contention, basically, was that we were not being allowed to make any of the major decisions that were going on in the company that we own and we pay the bills for. So therein lay the bone of contention. So the WWE, who paid me as a consultant, that they didn't consult with, but they paid me as a consultant, released me from that position, which is every right of theirs to do. But they could not fire me from Ohio Valley Wrestling because you can't fire me from a company that I'm part owner of. But I agreed to step aside to not muddy the waters because they're still doing business with OVW, a company that I'm part owner of, that I am now involved in a different direction. I'm working on selling television advertising. I'm working on setting up more live events. I'm working on dealing with the fire departments and the local civic groups that sponsor live house shows for OVW because I want the company to succeed. And part of the reason that I agreed to get out of that picture was because I want the company to succeed. And if they're still going to pay OVW to perform a developmental service for them, I don't want them to go away. And at the same time, I think it was, boy, this is a bummer of a subject, isn't it? We haven't had any laughs in here. I'm going to end up real quick. It was a service to me because in the past 16 years, I've been booking for almost 14 of those years, either for myself or somebody else. I spent a year working on the booking committee in WCW. I followed that up by booking 200 hours of first-run television in 4 years for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, along with a small smattering of applause. Along with major events like the Night of the Legends and the Super Bowl, all the videotapes we did. I followed that up by going to Connecticut, where for about a year and a half I was on the writing staff there. And I followed that up after a brief break by going to Louisville, where I did 308 first-run 1-hour episodes of Ohio Valley Wrestling in 6 years' time, wrote them, produced them, and announced them. And you talk about being burnt out. Sometimes I sit there and look at that piece of paper, and I hated my week. And when you hate working for yourself and you hate your job, you get burnt out like that. It doesn't do anybody any good. So basically, it was a challenging enough position to do this. I mean, I Love Lucy did 180 first-run half-hour episodes. My God, for heaven's sake. Nobody can write this shit forever. But I wasn't going to quit because I don't quit. But I'm very obsessive compulsive. People who know me will tell you that. Anybody who excels in anything or who's passionate about anything has a touch of obsessive compulsive disease. And if my face is on it and my name is attached to it, I want to be solely responsible for it, because if it sucks pond water, then it's my fault and nobody else's. But if it's good, then I get the credit conversely. If I do something that somebody else tells me to do, use this person, and I know they're going to suck, and I do anyway, and it turns out they suck worse than I thought they were going to suck. A couple of weeks ago, the big thing was we had a match. I would have never put the guy on the show. But it was the very first match of a TV taping. This match was so bad, it hurt the fans' feelings. It fucking stunk. It took the breath out of them. They brought the tickets back they had sold the week before. I can't take that. So when I'm told to do something that I know is wrong for my business, and it's got my name on it and my face on it, and I'm having to suffer through it and make explanations for it, I get crazy. I go crazy. And I don't need to have a stroke. I know you can't tell, but I'm high strung. But I know it's hard to believe, but but I don't want to have a stroke. I don't want to have a heart attack, and I can't work under them conditions what prevails. So it's better for everybody, except for my defense attorney, that I don't book wrestling again for a while, because I really got to where I didn't enjoy it, because I've done it for so long, and you can only do so much before you need to. As Ernie Ladd used to say, your brain is like a sponge, and when it absorbs all the knowledge that it can, then you must wring it out. Well, I need to be wrung out. As a matter of fact, I'm soaked right now. My extra strength deodorant failed me. But anyway, that's a long, complicated answer to a question that you barely asked at all. And that's basically it. So yes, no, maybe, kind of, and 4 o'clock are your answers.
Are you ready for another question, oh esteemed one?
From the East, yes. Where is Tommy? I've lost him. There he is over there.
Hey, I'm Robert from Richmond, Virginia. I want to know your thoughts on Paul Heyman writing the television for Ohio Valley, and who do you feel from Ohio Valley should have been sent up to the roster for WWE?
Well, first of all, I know this will shock the room. I think that the only person that I would have picked myself among the candidates would exist to book a company that I have a financial interest in succeeding is Paul Heyman. Boy, his cousin is back there somewhere. Everybody in the room must know Heyman personally. I mean, personally, I couldn't warm up to him if we were cremated together. Yes, that is true. But it's sort of like if this was the Bizarro world, he would be the Bizarro Cornette. Or if we were in New York up there with the rest of them Yankee bastards, then I would be the Bizarro Heyman. He's a good wrestling mind. He knows how to do a lot with a little. He knows how to make sense. He knows how to continue stories. Although I would never put the two of them in the same category, he and Vince Russo, I will say that there is one common element, is that when Heyman when you put a governor on something, by the way, everybody's staying in a hotel, right? Most everybody's staying in this hotel. Have you noticed they got a governor on the toilet paper? In my room, when you go in the bathroom, they got one of those things, it's not round, they put the toilet paper on, it's oblong. So you try to pull like 18 million sheets off because you don't want to have your finger go through and stick it up your ass with a shit on it. It won't go. It tears off because you got to manually turn the thing, or else you only get 3 squares. And I don't know about you, but after dinner tonight, I needed more than 3 squares. So the point is, it's got a governor on the toilet paper. And by the way, the toilet, if yours is like mine, I'm up on, I won't say which floor. Maybe for the ladies later on, I'll say which floor. When you flush the toilet, it sounds like a submarine firing an intercontinental ballistic missile. Okay, but anyway, when he's got a governor on him, Heyman's like Russo. Russo would have 27,000 ideas, and 2 of them would be good, and the rest of them would be shit, which just proves that sooner or later, even a blind squirrel will find a nut. But the thing about Heyman is, in Kentucky, there's an athletic commission. He can't set people on fire. He can't have blood and barbed wire and thumbtacks and AIDS infected hypodermic needles and whatever the fuck else. and also, you know, with the commission rulings in place, and because the talent roster is for the most part green and learning, he's not going to go off the beam and have this shit. And I'm sorry, I think it's hogwash wrestling when you got people being set on fire. It doesn't take a lot of talent to take a blunt instrument and bash somebody's brains out and turn their skull into jelly. Nolte could do that. So the art of wrestling is somewhat gone, but Heyman has a good wrestling mind, and he does do logical stories, and he does get the most out of the least. And to answer your question, yes, I like the fact that he's currently writing the OVW television show, because I don't have to worry about some dimwit sending the company into a financial spiral. I forgot the second part of your question. Oh, very good. I've been high for a long time on Matt Morgan. Of course, he's another guy that got fired. And really, when you think about it, you know, he's 7 feet tall, and he's 330 pounds, and he's only like 27 years old, and he's mostly injury-free, and he's very athletic, and he's built tremendously, and he finished 5th in his class in communications in college. Great attitude. How can you make any fucking money with a guy like that? You know, so... Well, there you go. If we'd have thought of that, we could have saved his job. If we could have just given him a brain defect of some description, that would have been the answer. But Matt Morgan, I was high on. I think the Tolans, Tank and Chad Toland, are a great tag team. Johnny Jeter and Matt Capitelli have been a tremendous tag team, reminiscent of a 21st Century Rock and Roll Express for the past couple of years. Of course, they just split them up because they didn't want to, I guess, accomplished tag team that had 2 years experience together, so they put Matt with another guy, but then Matt broke his leg anyway, so it don't really make a fuck. But see, when you're the booker, what you got to deal with? And they're the ones that told me they were singles. Jeter and Capitelli were singles. They said, we want to see them as a tag team. So I put them together as a tag team. They click. They win the title. They get over with the fans. They really become a great tag team. And they said, no, we don't want to be a team. Fuck! But anyway, a lot of the guys in OVW work hard, and they just need the exposure and the opportunity. But bear in mind this, and I'll be serious for a minute, and then we'll get back to the jokes, talking about Nolte's sex life. The greatest talent in the world cannot overcome bad booking, and the greatest booking in the world cannot overcome incompetent talent. You can have Sir Laurence Olivier. Did I go too old for the room? Thank God you're not as young as the OVW audience. They don't get any of my shit. Huh?
You could have Robert De Niro.
You could have Robert De Niro come in and do a high school play written by some 9th graders, and it probably wouldn't work. And by the same token, you can have the kindergarten class doing Shakespeare, and that probably ain't going to have the same punch. You need both. You need talent, and you need creative direction. And that's what determines whether wrestling succeeds or fails. So sometimes it's not always the talent. Sometimes it's not always the writing. When something stinks, could be both, could be strong influence of either. And when something succeeds, it could be both, or it could be a strong influence of one or the other. But eventually, you need both together. If that answers the question that you asked better than him, but I still went off the beam.
I have a follow-up. Have you spoken to Heyman since he took over for OVW?
Yeah, but I can't use language like that here because there's still women present in the room. No, there's actually, not since he took over, but there's been no problems with me and Paul, because I guess, you know, now, once again, I always think back to the words Ole Anderson said to me years ago. Cornette, I used to think you were a dumb fuck, but so many other dumb fucks have come along that are even worse than you. You've moved up the ladder without doing anything. And that's the kind of the way I feel about Heyman now. We're in the same boat. He's younger than me, even though he looks 10 years older. And he's almost antiquated as well because we can't get our minds of working in this kind of system that exists in the business today. I was watching Seinfeld the other night, and Jerry's dentist was a Catholic, but he converted to Judaism. And he's telling Jerry jokes in the chair, and Jerry gets hot because now he's got the right to all the jokes. He can tell the Jewish jokes, he can tell the Catholic jokes, he can tell the dentist jokes. He's got the right to all the good jokes. So Seinfeld goes to the guy's priest. He goes to confessional, and he says, Father, sir, I believe that Dr. So-and-so has converted to Judaism merely for the jokes. And the priest says, that offends you as a Jewish person? He said, no, it offends me as a comedian. What's going on these days doesn't offend me as a booker, it offends me as a wrestling fan. Don't get me wrong, every wrestling fan in the world should not be a booker. There are some of you in this room that I have a feeling I wouldn't feel too safely about letting you loose right in a national television show. I'm sorry, that's not a knock. But by the same token, if you're not a wrestling fan, you don't know what the fans want to see. So how can you... I don't go to Ford and tell them how to make their cars. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a race car driver. I can barely put gas in the fucking thing. If I stick the key in, I turn it on, the radio plays, the air works, I'm a happy guy. I'm not going to fuck with their fucking plans. I would let them build the cars. I would not ride in a car that I had anything to do with repairing. So by the same token, why do these bumblefucks from Hollywood or wherever want to get in my business and fuck it all up? I don't understand that. So point being, you got to be a wrestling fan if you want to be a good booker, because you have to know what the fans want to see and you got to kind of think like them. But you also, to me, also have to have some kind of experience performing, because until you get in that ring, I don't care how big a fan you are, and trust me, I was the biggest wrestling fan in the world when I was a kid, and I still am. Hate it lately, but you know, mostly I love wrestling. But when you get in the ring, and you understand what the guys go through. And me just being a manager, not ever having had a 4-star match by any means or stretch of the imagination, but just a little taste of what the guys go through, you realize there's a whole nother facet to it. So to me, to be good in the creative end of this business, you have to be a fan, and you also have to have some kind of experience as a performer, whether it be announcing, whether it be managing, whether it be wrestling, whether it be refereeing, whatever the case. I can think of bookers who have been qualified and done all those things, but I can't think of anybody who's ever been a good wrestling booker who hasn't done any of those things. Pause to think. And you?
Sam Muchnick.
He didn't book. He was a promoter, but not a booker. But now, St. Louis wrestling was the proverbial fly in the ointment. It was the exception to the rule.
The exception that proved
because Sam Muchnick was a sports writer who treated wrestling like professional boxing, or, well, I was about to say, what am I saying? Professional boxing or any other legitimate sport. Hold on. Boy, I almost made a faux pas there. Some people think boxing is still legitimate. I'll tell you, there's different ways they do it, but come on. Sometimes both guys in the ring ain't in on it, but it's almost always a work if there's money up. but St. Louis was booked as a professional sport, and it was more of who's going to win this match between the top-ranked guy and the number 2-ranked guy. So St. Louis was an exception, but even still then, Sam Muchnick had somebody that handled the talent, Pat O'Connor or Bob Brown or whatever, instead of being directly involved in the matchmaking. So there's an asterisk there. You almost got one. Keep trying.
A certain member of our audience who prefers to remain anonymous wanted to know about the drive-thru incident.
Which one?
Actually, I'll tell a new one because, no. I got to get arrested a couple more times because I got to have some new material. Everybody keeps asking about the same shit. I don't, yeah, buy the DVD. Who said that? Yeah, there you go. Buy the DVD. Keep recycling these questions. But there's another one. Did you know that the Wendy's drive-thru windows are not bulletproof? I didn't know that. I need to back up. First of all, when people, I don't understand why any business in the United States of America that wants to cater to clientele that drive or walk up to their establishment hires people that can't speak fucking English. I'm not knocking people from foreign countries, for God's sake. I know they're just as intelligent as you and I, or at least him. But Jesus, if you deal with the public, I don't go to Spain and get a job at the drive-thru. I don't know how to talk to these people. Therefore, it's an idea that I probably can't do this shit, right? So I go to a Wendy's near home, and this was a couple of years ago. And for some reason, there is a person of, and I don't want to get racist here, Arabian or Iranian or Iraqian or Middle Eastern or whatever kind of fucking descent they are, working at every Wendy's in Louisville. Now, I'm not going to come up here and knock people from Iran or Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever the fuck they're from. I'm not their PR person, but I'll tell you what, they need to fire the motherfucker because they're not doing a very good job. Here's the goddamn deal. They're their own worst enemies. We think they're fucking nuts, right? You can't help it. When's the last time that an ex-president of the United States died and the people tried to tackle the coffin and pull the body out in the middle of the street? This shit's on CNN. It's not like they're making it up. There's video. When they have a funeral, they're so grieved, they take their AK-47s and fire them straight up in the air. These bullets are going to come back down, Einstein. They're acting like fucking cave people on goddamn national television, and we're supposed to, but they're victims of racism. No, they're victims of fucking stupidity. So anyway, in this case, there was a gentleman from the Middle East working the window. So we pull up. I got a triple. I got some fries. I got a Sprite. It's like $7 or whatever. I give the guy 20. He looks at me like this. And he walks back and he immediately strikes up a conversation with somebody else working there who I assume speaks the fucking language that he does. Time passes. Now at window number 2, they're holding my bag out, right? You want to come get your shit, Einstein? You understand how this 2-window deal works? I'm like, I need my $13 over here, you know. So number 2 window woman, who's American. Now, I'm thinking even if I can't speak the language, I can hand people their food. So they put the English-speaking people out to hand the food out. You can train a chimpanzee to do that. And they put the people that don't speak English to talk, take the orders, and count the change, okay? Number 2 window woman brings my bag around to number 1 window. But now by this time, the guy's come back from his conversation, and he's staring at the money like he's got handfuls of steaming turds. And he's not quite sure what to do with it. So she says, he'll have your change in just a second. I said, well, I hope to God so, because I'd like to get out of here. Just then, he's got the bills in his hand, and he's almost leaning out the window. But when he hears me say that, he draws back. Like, now you forfeited your chance to get your change now because you were sarcastic to me. But the whole time, he's got the same expression on. And I'm looking at him. I said, are you going to give me my change? Now, in retrospect, thinking back, there were things I didn't realize. I didn't realize that he didn't have a goddamn clue what I was saying. That's why he was just smiling, because he didn't really have anything to say back to me. He was waiting on the 47 cents. He had the bills, but he didn't have the coins. But because there was this disparity of communication between us, we really weren't getting this picture. I was thinking he was being a prick, and he was thinking I was being a prick, is what I was thinking. And so I said, you know what? I got the food. Keep the goddamn money. Buy yourself some English lessons. Put it in drive. Start to pull out. When the person riding next to me, who shall remain nameless, you ain't going to give that guy your goddamn $13, are you? Back up, pull in the wrong way, roll down the other window. Motherfucker, give me my money. Give me my money. Now he's standing there going. She's like, dude, just give me the bills. I got out, I'm coming around. Now he throws the bills into the car, and right as I walk up where I'm going to pull him through that window, and if it's not big enough, I will reenact the moment of his birth. He slams the window on me. So to make a point, I said, fuck you, and boom, just to make the point, just like an exclamation point on the expletive that wasn't deleted. 20 blue million pieces cut the shit out of me. I thought the shit was bulletproof. These people are totally defenseless. That's just regular glass. I Goldberged that motherfucker right there. Boom. So now, well, I guess I should go now. So I get in the car, I go, of course they get the license number, but now I'm driving home and I'm trying to steer with my knees and eat the triple with this hand because this hand's bleeding, but I'm still hungry and I'm pissed off. So the cost of replacing a Wendy's drive-thru window on Sunday with time and a half for overtime is $425. But they sent the guy home because they said he was traumatized by the incident. Wait, don't nobody else know. I got to tell you something. I read in USA Today yesterday. Have you heard the guy in New Orleans is suing Michael Jackson for sexual assault? Have you heard about this? Okay, not the trial that just concluded. There's a guy in New Orleans that has filed suit against Michael Jackson. Get this now, it's in USA Today. For sexual assault because in 1984, at the World's Fair in New Orleans, when this guy was 18 years old, Michael Jackson picked him up in his limousine, drugged him, performed some type of illicit sexual activity with him, took the guy back to California, kept him for 8 days where the abuse continued, and the reason why the guy hasn't filed suit is because he repressed the memory until the recent trial coverage brought it all bubbling back to the surface. Let's examine this. You're an 18-year-old guy. You're in New Orleans at the World's Fair. It's 1984. Thriller is still on the charts. You get picked up in a limousine by Michael fucking Jackson. You get sexually assaulted, taken to California, drugged, and held for 8 days, and you forget. I can remember every single time I was sexually assaulted when I was 18 by people that weren't even stars. How do you forget these people are so stunningly full of bullshit? It's ridiculous. And speaking of which, Tommy.
Oh, my name is David from Memphis, and I was wondering, before you became a performer, when you were...
That's easy for you to say. In your own words, would you please tell the court?
Before you became a performer...
Shit, I'm running them off already. They're leaving. Oh, okay. Actually, if they got any cold Sprite, that would be nice. I'm just completely blowing David from Memphis off, but sorry. Thank you. We'll try to be boring till you get back. It's a good cause going to the bar.
A Bud Light for me. Bud Light for me.
Yeah, don't get shit for Tommy, okay? He's had enough. He's cut off.
Before you became a performer, when you were just taking photos, did you have any interaction with Nick Gulas, and do you have any funny stories?
Actually, what?
Oh, this is going to be good.
Are you going to tell my story? No. It's not going to be good because I got to disappoint him because actually, I never worked for Nick Gulas because Louisville, after the split happened between Jared Jarrett and Nick Gulas, Louisville was one of the cities that went on Jarrett's side. Louisville, Evansville, Indiana, Lexington, Kentucky, Memphis, and Nick Gulas had Nashville and Birmingham, etc. Anyway, point being, it was a promotion award in those days. You picked one side or the other. It's not like today where you can work for almost any promoter unless you have a contract or something. If somebody was running that particular territory, you didn't work for anybody else. So if I'd have worked for Nick Gulas, I'd have got kicked out, and I thankfully picked the winning horse in that race, which was Jared Jarrett. Nick Gulas was an incredible character in the wrestling business. I never got the chance to work for him directly, but I did start taking pictures about 6 or 9 months, I would say, or maybe a little bit more before the split happened between him and Jarrett. I've been going to the matches for years before that. So Point being, indirectly, by working for Christine Jarrett, Jerry's mother, who was the Louisville promoter, I did indirectly work for Nick Gulas, but I never really got to meet him. But he was a classic character in the business, and of course, George Gulas to this day remains the trivia question answer to what caused the Tennessee territory that had had the same ownership for 40 years to suddenly be split up and go through all those changes. But Nick Gulas was one of the old-fashioned kind of promoters. He'd do the local promos on television, and he'd sit there and he was Greek. And of course, he'd been in this country, I guess, all of his life, and he'd been promoting and doing television ever since it went on the air and promoting since the 30s. He still couldn't hardly speak English. He said, Louisville wrestling fans, Tuesday night you install one of the biggest cards I've signed in many years, headlined by the return NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship match where the champion, Jerry the King Lawler, is going to face the challenge of the #1 contender and the fabulous Jackie Fargo. In the studio with me right now, I got none other than fabulous Jackie Fargo. Jackie, tell these fans in Louisville exactly what you're going to do down there Tuesday night, where you're going to beat that Jerry Lawler for what he did to you last week down there at the convention center, and you're going to regain the Southern Heavyweight Championship for all these people in Louisville that have supported you so highly for so many years. And tell these fans what you think about the way that Jerry Lawler's been talking about them and running them down, and tell them, oh, I see we're out of time. Well, we'll see you down there Tuesday night. Every week it was fucking great. I wanted to see the shit. I wanted to see what Jackie had to say. I had to go buy a ticket to see what the fucking guy had to say. If that answers your question, I'm sorry. They missed it. They were at the bar.
Hi, Jim. I'm Brian from Cumberland, Maryland. Look at this weekend alone. You're here. JJ's here. Bobby Heenan, Gary Hart. What happened to the man?
Uh-oh.
Where's...
Wait a minute
What happened
now.
to the lights? I don't know.
Greg Price didn't pay the bill.
But, growing up watching it, the managers were always such a huge part of it. And now, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that? And down in Ohio Valley, were you working on that? Was that a big part of your show down there in your program whenever you were down there? Well,
yeah, actually, we got our manager in OVW is, I don't know if who here has seen any of the Ohio Valley Wrestling TV shows? A decent amount for a show that's only on in Louisville, Kentucky, a decent amount of hands. Kenny Bolin, the most disreputable, dishonorable, backstabbing, gum-bumping sack of snake feces that's ever been, the shysterish, most crooked, conniving con man. I love him. He's great. He is our manager, and he's a cross between Mr. Haney on Green Acres and Jerry Lawler in his early days when he was a heel and cutting such great promos. And the world's largest wrestling manager. He's got a little of George Crybaby Cannon in him to go back a long way for many of you. He's a great old-fashioned heel manager, and he just gets people riled up just by talking. And he's obviously so stunningly full of bullshit that you just got to dislike the guy, and he's funny as shit. Bobby Heenan, for years he was tremendously funny, but also he was effective, and you could hate him. And he was telling funny jokes, and you still hated him. And Gary Hart and Humperdinck is going to be here also. And so many of the great managers, as wrestling has entered the modern era, now, unless you have fake snavitzes and look good in a bikini, you can't be a manager at ringside. Paul Bearer was, there's been no major male manager for a long time. Not because they weren't effective, and not because they didn't have a place, not because they didn't get over, but because as the wrestling switched the pendulum from a sport with showbiz thrown into showbiz with a little sport thrown in, they figure, oh, well, we don't want to look at the fat old guy with the wart on his neck out there. We want to look at the real hot girl with the fake snavitzes and the wart on her neck out there. Something happened, and I don't know why. It happened that way. I think part of it is the WWF never really relied on managers a lot anyway. If you notice, Bobby Heenan was one of the notable exceptions, Jimmy Hart, but as years went by, they really downplayed that. Male managers have just kind of gone by the wayside, but they were tremendously effective. And the thing about it is, a male manager, and I'm not knocking the girls either, because there was one of the hottest managers ever was an old-time lady wrestler named Mae Weston, not Mae West, or Mae West, try it again, not Mae Young, but Mae Weston, who later on became Ma Bass and managed Ron and Don Bass earlier in their career over in Southern Illinois and Western Kentucky. And she had so much heat, she was like a modern-day Ma Barker, and the people believed in the early 70s in those days, she had those guys shot at and they tried to stab them, they tried to burn their car. They hated that woman, and she was tougher than the men. She'd knock the fans every which way. But, you know, a manager can get heat, but only if the people believe what's going on. And as belief has gone by the wayside, so have managers. And now, I mean, and it's not a very complicated formula, because through most of my career, when I was selling tickets, when people were coming, and some of you here, God bless you, would come to see us get the shit kicked out of us, I was an ambiguously, questionably gay mama's boy who was a coward and a liar and a cheat and carried a tennis racket with which to whack the baby faces over the head, right? Kind of simple, easy to figure out. It wasn't any big deal where, you know, I didn't have there was the gay lobby saying, you know, oh, geez, we're picketing this guy because he's giving gay people a bad name, because I wasn't out there kissing the guys on the mouth. I was just, you know, suspected. I didn't have the mama's boy lobby coming out saying, oh, you're giving mama's boys a bad name. I didn't have the tennis racket people saying, oh, you're giving tennis a bad name. And the liars and the cheats and the con men, I don't think they've got groups yet. So I was pretty safe. I just made people mad, and they wanted to see me and my guys get beat. And that's the formula. And it's really simple, but unfortunately, you're such a great man. Thank you. But unfortunately, a lot of people can't figure that out, and there's not a lot of places now for male managers, and it's a shame. It really is.
Jim, you've talked about this before. You're not really a fan of old school wrestling or new school wrestling. You're a fan. You don't believe in that. You believe in good wrestling and bad wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that have changed, obviously. I mean, you know, gas used to be 65 cents a gallon, and things change. But people go, well, that's old school because they're wrestling on the mat. Or that's new school because they're flipping off the top rope. Or whatever. It's not old school or new school. It's good and bad. If it's good wrestling, that means that you're watching it and you're liking it and people are buying tickets to see it. If it's bad wrestling, that means the shit sucks, it's boring, and you're going click and you don't want to go to the building. Otherwise than that, it's not much difference. Old school and new school should be replaced by shit's good and shit sucks. Because that way we clearly understand what's going on. In 1985, every match wasn't on the ground in an arm bar and a rest hold, which I never heard that term till it was coined on the internet or in the sheets or whatever, but it wasn't nobody was breaking the rules, and there was no blood, and everyone was wrestling, and they shook hands, and they kissed babies, and they went over to each other. No, fuck. There was blood, and there was guts, and there was furniture, but it was believable. And it was executed by people who knew what they were doing. And it was orchestrated by bookers that knew what they were doing. And it was telecast and broadcast to people who were enjoying watching it. And even if you knew that something is kind of off, you didn't know. You didn't know exactly what was happening. And that's the difference. Now everybody knows every way to do everything. It's all over the internet. A lot of the guys, and this is not a knock on the performers of today, because a lot of them haven't had the experience or the place or the opportunity to learn or to be taught or to just get it. But a lot of times it's not being executed properly. It's gone over the top. It's like nuclear disarmament. You've got to fucking agree that the whole business as a whole is going to stop doing this shit before, because then you just find, well, in the other promotion they whack each other with chairs 5 times harder than they do here, so that means the other promotion's better. No, it means the guys the other promotion are getting brain fucking damage. I mean, Jesus Christ, this is an art. The art is to look like athletes, to come off like stars, and to engage in simulated combat in the round in front of thousands of people who can't see through it and don't know how it's done. That's an art. It's not art if you pick up a chair and you clock somebody as hard as you possibly can, and the next day they can't remember what they had for breakfast, and now the people don't buy it anyway. Fucking Vince Russo, the Brawl for All that knocked out half of the WWE talent roster and destroyed several careers, it was great. He said, it's going to be a shoot. It's going to be Vince Russo, who till he started writing the television program, had never been inside the rail while a match was going on. Vince Russo, who the most athletic thing he ever did in his life was jog his memory. It's great. It's going to be a shoot. I said, what? Why? Because we can say it's a shoot and people will believe it. Okay, Vince, let me get this straight. Russo now, not McMahon. Vince Russo, let me get this straight. For the past couple of years, you have been lobbying to just come out and completely admit that everything involving in professional wrestling is a work because you think that anybody who ever believed anything about wrestling is a hillbilly backwoods moron because you're from New York, you fucking Yankee prick. You think that everybody who ever believed anything about wrestling is a complete moron, and all the smart people up north in New York know that it's all fun and it's all entertainment, so you want to come out and you want to tell everybody it's a work. Then you want to have the guys really fight each other and really beat each other up. Now that you've convinced them that it's all a work, you want to throw in a shoot, which they ain't going to believe anyway because you've spent the past few years telling them it's all a work. So 10 years ago, the guys were in the ring working with each other and the people bought tickets because they believed they were shooting. Now you want the guys in the ring shooting with each other, really hurting each other, and the people are not going to buy any more tickets because they're convinced it's all fake. You're a fucking genius, Russo. So a bunch of guys got hurt, and it didn't do any ratings, and it didn't draw any money, and he just proved again that he was a moron. But that was the first of many times that he would execute that maneuver. But that's the thing. There's an art to it. So good wrestling and bad wrestling. You know, not everybody. A lot of people want to play in the NBA. A lot of people want to play in the NFL. I would love to have been the worker that a Terry Funk or a Jack Briscoe or a Harley Race was. But that ain't happening. Not now, not then, not in the future, not ever. Fortunately, I was able to understand the mental aspect of it and talk a little bit and find a little niche. But a lot of people want to do a lot of things they just can't do. And sometimes you got to accept that. So instead of setting yourself on fire or falling through, a furniture store full of furniture or being beaten until you turn into hamburger, you got to just admit, you know what, maybe I ought to watch this shit instead of trying to do it. Because that's what gives wrestling a bad name, is when guys who can't do it resort to that to try to be stars. Everybody wants to be known and recognized for what they do, but I think it's equally as important that you do what you do well before you get recognized for it. And I got completely off the beam there. A small smattering of applause once again.
Over here, Cordy.
Jim, I'm Scott Burton from Advance, North Carolina. This is a two-part question. First of all...
Trying to get me in trouble now, by the way. Sorry, okay.
That's all right.
Before I take a drink of this, since it's two parts, I got to actually be focused.
Okay.
Nelsie's over here looking at his watch. Like, wait, got any place to go? We got rid of a couple people already. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was wondering if you could reminisce back the days when you managed Vader, and also you could see down in the future your boys taking on the Dudley Boys.
Vader, I love Leon White. I liked managing Vader. He was a tremendous talent, had a great gimmick, and if you notice, that's something that you don't see a lot these days. You see guys with characters, but you don't see any great gimmicks. Dusty Rhodes was a great gimmick. Dick Murdoch was a great gimmick. Abdullah the Butcher was a great gimmick. Everybody looked different. You certainly weren't going to mistake Dick Murdoch for Magnum TA, for Dusty Rhodes, for Abdullah the Butcher, for Manny Fernandez. Everybody had a different look, right? Now everybody's got to be tall and got to have abs, and it's more generic, but they have characters. They have backstories, right? To me, the talent that gets over best is talent that just goes out there and turns themselves up, turns their volume up on their personality, and they're all individuals and they're different. And the people that don't get over are the ones that are pretty boring bastards to begin with, So with Vader, I mean, he's 420 pounds and he's that red hair and he's got that red face and he screws his face up and he's got the mask on and he's got the hands and the gloves and he's beating the shit out of people, and Leon was stiff. Don't think anything about it. Leon was stiff. But he got over because he could move for a guy that size, and at the same time he was different. He looked different. So he did quite well, and I enjoyed managing Leon. Second question, I'm going to be doing some dates with the Midnight Express. I still don't like to leave Louisville too often, but I'm going to be doing some dates with the Midnight Express because now that that Dennis is back in the business and Stan actually wrestles on occasion and I always enjoy getting together with Bobby. With the way that things go and nobody lives forever and we've lost some guys that I would like to have a chance to work with again, I'm going to do some Midnight Express matches just because if something were to happen 2 years from now and I said I had a chance to do it again and I didn't, I would, I'd kick myself in the ass. So if somebody books that match, I think it would be good because the Dudleys are probably the only tag team these days in the business that's really recognized as a tag team, because guys don't get a chance to stay together regularly like they used to. They're switched together. They don't travel from place to place together as a team like the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Road Warriors, et cetera, et cetera. They're just kind of switched back and forth, and nobody really has a chance to get that good click going. So I'd like to have that match.
Are there guys that you were asked to manage or promotion put you together that you did not like managing?
I mean, there's some people that that I would have probably rather not managed. Just either it was in addition to the Midnight Express or the only one I can really think of, and he was a nice guy, and I don't mean to knock him. God bless him. Does anybody remember Mantor? Holy shit! I thought they were ribbing me. I mean, we were at a WWF TV taping. And this guy, he's coming out, and he's the second coming of Yukon Moose Cholak. He's got a moose head or a buffalo or whatever on his head, and it's so heavy. He's falling over like he's got some kind of syndrome or something. And I swear, he was so slow in his reactions. If he'd shoot a guy in a turnbuckle, he would start running across the ring, and the guy would move, and he would still keep going. He'd be like, and then he'd turn around. It was bloody horrible. And he'd had a couple of matches, and then I looked at the board one night. It was about 15 minutes before the show started. He was on first, and my name was down there, Mantar with Cornette. Bruce Pritchard is ribbing me, right? And they said, get ready, you're going out with Mantar. I said, oh, come on. No, you really are. To this day, I don't know who. It was a rib on me, right? I had to do it for like 4 weeks, and I assume it was a rib. Either that or they said, well, geez, either we wanted Cornette to save him and he couldn't, or we wanted him to kill Cornette and he couldn't do that either. Let's just quit. I don't know what happened. But I got away from him fairly quickly. But walking to the ring with a guy with a buffalo head on his head is an experience that can't be missed. So he's the only one I can really think of that I just totally bloody regret. And the new Midnight Express, Bart Gunn and Bob Holly, I can't really say I regret. I did that because they had the idea, not those guys. The office had the idea, and Bart Gunn and Bob Holly were both good guys that needed a break, and I thought could perform, but it was an ill thought out concept that wasn't carried very far, and I didn't have much control over it otherwise and try to lend a little credibility to it, but they didn't do anything with it. But I can't say I regretted managing them because they were both nice guys, and I thought they deserved a chance to do something. So probably the Buffalo Head's my only regret.
Over here, Corny.
You're everywhere. Where are you? Ah, there you are.
Thanks. I'm Mike from England, which is an island off the coast of Europe. And thank you.
Thank you, Randy McNally, for that for that piece of information. We would have never guessed.
Thank you. Sorry. Now, I have a two-part question. The first part, what was the opinion within the industry at the time of the whole Kaufman-Lawler deal?
The Kaufman-Lawler deal?
Yeah.
Well, the opinion in the industry of the Kaufman-Lawler deal, I can't even, I'm not a good accent person.
Were you in the business yet when Kaufman-Lawler
happened? Actually, I was there. I was at ringside taking pictures for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. If you've seen the tape of the match, the little scrawny guy with the blue jeans running around with a camera would be me. That was April of '82, and I got into business in August of '82. So, like 4 months, whatever. Do the math. I don't know. But the reason why that came about was, for once, Memphis scooped the rest of the wrestling world, because the story goes, and it's mostly correct, is that Andy Kaufman, and then you can do the second part. I interrupted you, I know. I do that a lot. Just ask my girlfriend. Kaufman wanted to wrestle on a real wrestling show because he was a big wrestling fan. He was very respectful of the business. He wasn't trying to make fun of it, you know, like some of the celebrities you see, just doing it, you know, for shits and grins or whatever. And so he wanted to wrestle on a real wrestling show, and Bill Apter told him, they turned him down in Madison Square Garden because that was still Vince Sr. And Bill Apter told him the only place that's crazy enough to let a 130-pound comedian or whatever wrestle on a real wrestling show is in Memphis. So he called Lawler, and that's how they put it together. And I think a lot of people in the business at the time were like, this shit's going to kill the business. Boy, they had no idea what shit was to come. And I'll tell you something, the wrestling business, it's still not dead yet. It may be on life support. It needs to be resuscitated. But boy, has that corpse taken a pounding over the past 15 years. Because we said everything would kill the business. Everything's going, this is going to kill the business. How's it going to kill the business? It's still not dead. It's horribly scarred up and disfigured, but it's not dead. But at that, you know, a lot of people thought it would kill the business, but when they saw the publicity that Lawler got out of it and the fact that they worked it so well, and to this day, until the movie came out, a lot of people did not realize it was a work, down to, you know, the neck brace, the Letterman thing. I think it ended up being a plus for the business because it got a lot of publicity, and it wasn't like, okay, this comedian just won the world heavyweight title. It was this comedian was making fun of wrestling, and this badass wrestler dropped him on his head and put him in the hospital. Shit. Okay, that ain't going to convince everybody in the world that wrestling's real, but at least it does convince people that, hey, you better not fuck with them fucking wrestlers. You know, so that was good. Next question. Next part. Part two.
And I'll try not to do the Asian street accent this time. Can I get a shout out Brian anywhere around?
I better have a drink of this. Maybe he'll sound like I can understand him better if I do.
Okay, so this is probably the most important question that anyone's asked all night. Do you have any good Dave Brown stories?
Unfortunately, even for an experienced and funny comedian such as myself, there are no funny Dave Brown stories. No. Dave Brown is actually, he's a great guy. You got to know him. He's a wonderful guy. He's a friendly guy, but he's the most boring son of a bitch that you could ever possibly imagine. Dave Brown. His name is boring. He's a weatherman. He does the weather. And he's not even a meteorologist. He didn't go to school for it. He was just a news announcer that they started doing the weather, and now he's an institution. Not in an institution, he's just an institution. But he's been doing the weather, but he was classic as Lance Russell's sidekick. Because Lance had all this personality and had that voice and the look, and he'd been doing Memphis wrestling on TV since they were, you know, broadcasting out of a tin can on Union Street. You know, but back before anybody was even born, people still saw in black and white in those days. When they were in school, they didn't have history, is how long ago it was. But anyway, but Dave was just there. Davey, you know, say goodnight, Gracie. Say goodnight, Davey. Same thing. Dave is just, he has been on Memphis television for like 40 years and never gotten in trouble, never had any domestic disputes. I don't know if he's ever raised his voice at anybody or not. He's great, he's nice, boring. Just like the answer to that question. Good day, mate. Tommy, do something. Save me. Give me something to work with here.
Jim, my name is Philip. I'm from Tazewell, Virginia.
Tazewell, beautiful. I spent a week there one night.
I've been an OVW fan since about 2001, and I was wanting to know what your thoughts on Nick Dinsmore and Rob Conway's new gimmicks, or the current gimmicks.
Well, truthfully, I have not seen Rob Conway's newest gimmick because what now? Oh, I'm not missing anything. I quit watching any other wrestling on TV but OVW about 6 months ago for my own peace of mind and self-preservation because I was either going to electrocute myself putting my foot through the TV screen, or it just, stuff makes me mad. It's not bulletproof. You know, here's the thing. Nick Dinsmore, Eugene, for those of you who don't know, Nick Dinsmore was Danny Davis's second student, my partner's second student in Ohio Valley Wrestling. He's from Louisville. Danny's first student was Doug Basham, who's also Danny's nephew, and who, in my opinion, is probably the most natural worker that I've seen in the past 15 years. His second student was Nick Dinsmore, who, those of you who have only seen Eugene would not know, but is a tremendous technical wrestler, was part of our training staff there at OVW before he got called up. Had a tremendous 25-minute match with Chris Benoit at the Gardens about 4 or 5 years ago. A tremendous classical scientific wrestler. Danny's third student was Rob Conway, who's also from Louisville. A lot of these guys from Louisville. Who's a tremendous worker and a great bumper and a good talker. And Danny's fourth student was a kid from Seymour, Indiana, named the Damager, who's now Danny Basham, who is only like 23 years old, has been in business now 5 years, and was a natural himself. Although you don't get to see a lot from the Bashams, they are tremendous talents. Tag team wrestling is just not featured in the WWF. The Eugene thing I can kind of go with because Nick Dinsmore deserves to be a big star, and he deserves to make money, and it's the old Roughhouse Fargo thing revisited. It's just that sometimes I kind of think, geez, you know, Nick does have to have talent to get that kind of thing across, but he has so much other talent that doesn't get a chance to get exposed because of the limitations of the gimmick. But Rob, hopefully, has gone back to being a little bit more of himself because Sylvain Grenier, he was in Louisville, I still can't pronounce his fucking name, was an anchor around his neck because I always thought he was a shit since the first day that I saw him. Well, I would say he's a nice guy, but he's French-Canadian, so I can't even tell you that. He's never been an asshole to me, but he just, got that, hi, I'm from Montreal, and I suck, But Rob deserves it, and Nick deserves it, and if they're on television and they're making some money and they get a chance to show anything of what they can do, I'm happy for them, to answer your question.
Speaking of tag team,
Tommy's drinking beer over here now. You're supposed to be the roving reporter.
I know,
and
that's
you haven't moved from that spot. You're not roving.
This wonderful audience has been they've been giving me beer after beer after beer. I'm drunk and I'm loving it. And thanks everybody. We will continue.
Tommy Young, everybody. Tommy Young.
How much does it...
Actually, you're spoiling the comedy, though, because I wanted to see Tommy drunk, stumbling over everybody's lap, roving around, but it's okay.
How much does it bother you that tag team wrestling has pretty much been decimated?
Yeah, well, it's just a shame because, great tag team matches, and a lot of times Midnight Express to Rock and Roll Express be the main event here in Charlotte or whatever, or the Road Warriors were main event stars. Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson were a tremendous team. I could go on and on about all the great teams back to the Assassins and the Kentuckians, for God's sake. But tag team wrestling, in a lot of cases on the bigger NWA shows, was the semifinal match that was really supposed to steal the show and get you ready for the main event. And a lot of time, and of course, we were always happy when Ric Flair was on the main event because we knew that besides the fact we were going to see a great match for the world title, we were also going to make some money because anytime the Nature was in the house, there were people in the seats and they paid to come. So we loved being underneath Ric Flair's matches because it was a contest. It was a chance to see if we could have the best match on the card except for Ric Flair's. If we did that, we knew we'd done something. And tag team matches were a very important part of the cards. But once again, in the WWF, the tag teams were not featured. You can go back to the days of the late 50s in the Garden with Rocca and Perez, but the last time that tag team wrestling really was featured in the Northeast. And unfortunately, fortunately for some, unfortunately for others, that's the style of wrestling that's carried over because that was the promotion that won out. And, the other promoters couldn't get their shit together in a lot of cases, and that led to a lot of these things going out of fashion, including long, boring answers to questions like I just gave.
Hey, Jim. Scott from Fort Lauderdale. Can you reminisce a little bit about that scaffold match? You had that kind of nasty fall, and who's the drummer for Led Zeppelin?
And who's the... Well, not anymore. He's not. He's dead. John Bonham. Thank you. Bonzo. I've told the scaffold match story a bunch of times, and buy the DVD. Oh, Jesus, everybody's heard it. I'm not going to bore you. I'm going to bore 3/4 of the audience. But yes, it was a long fucking way. I was a complete idiot, and I shouldn't have done it. But at the same time, I'd only been in the business a couple of years. I was the main event at Starrcade. It was the biggest NWA show of all time, and I probably would have jumped off the roof of the Omni if they'd asked me to, and thank God I didn't give them the idea. And if you want to see that and many other great Midnight Express matches, where's Howard Brody? Did he probably already left and went to sleep, but Howard Brody's table tomorrow, the 6-volume Midnight Express tape set, you can see all that great shit.
Corny, I must say, and I think I speak for the entire audience, you might be a lot of things, you're not boring.
Thank you, Tomston, for forcing that gratuitous round of applause onto this unsuspecting audience.
Hi, Jim. This is Jeff from Las Vegas. I know in '87, Dennis, he had talked about on a couple of the shoots that he wanted to go to the WWF because apparently you guys had received a deal to go over there. And you and Bobby kind of nixed that. I was wondering, did you guys fear that once you guys went over there, Vince would totally just ruin the Midnight Express gimmick and maybe, bury you guys on the roster?
Well, no, and actually, on one of the shoot tapes I did, I explained that there had been a theory that the reason why Dennis left was because he disagreed with me and Bobby that we didn't want to go to the WWF, and he did, and that's why he left. And I explained on the DVD, which you obviously drank through that part, that was not the reason. That was a story that went around. It was not true. We had talked to Vince McMahon personally about going to the WWF in, I'm going to say, May of '86 or thereabouts. I could be wrong a month or two. And the problem was at the time, he was talking about, oh yeah, we're going to do dolls of the guys. And they're going to look just like you. We're going to take pictures, scan them and everything. Dolls. We were in the wrestling business. And we were used to, when we talked to a booker or a promoter, okay, we're going to bring you in. You're going to stay for so long. We're going to push you. We're going to put the belts on you. You're going to work with so-and-so. You'll probably be here about 6 months. If you get over, you'll be here a year. Pertinent business details about wrestling that we understood. And Vince is talking about, oh, we're going to make dolls of the guys. He didn't say we were going to win the belts. He didn't say we were going to get pushed. He didn't say how long we'd be there. He didn't say what we were going to make approximately. Just we're going to make dolls. We're going to do all these ideas. Well, later on, the Iron Sheik got a check for a quarter of the year, 3 months for like $80,000 for those fucking dolls. I didn't understand. So, it was a foreign concept at the time. But at the same time we talked to Vince, Crockett came out with contracts for the first time. And here we are, we're living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're working in the Carolinas and Virginia and West Virginia, and occasionally we go to Philly and Baltimore, but then we'd get the hell out of there and get back down to North Carolina, where we wanted to be. We were home, we liked the weather, we liked the town, we liked the guys we were working with. We had the Rock and Roll Express, which was a natural matchup that people didn't get tired of seeing. We had a lot of great opponents. We were the World Tag Team Champions, and we were already making well over $150,000 that year on track to, which we did better than that, actually, 1986. Why leave that? Why switch horses in midstream? Why go to where there weren't a lot of great tag teams? I'm not saying there weren't any, but there wasn't as many as in the NWA. Why leave Charlotte, North Carolina? Because we loved living here. Now, I'm not saying that just for the cheap pop, which didn't fucking actually materialize, but no, we did. I mean, I've always loved living in the South. I was in Connecticut for 3 years. I was in jail in Baton Rouge one time I liked better than Connecticut. I'm telling you the truth. We just didn't want to leave. It was home. It was where, we had Tommy refereeing our matches, and that was worth a chuckle and a tickle every night. So we just decided not to go, and it wasn't until March of '87 that Dennis left for his own reasons that he's explained on some of those DVDs. Had nothing to do with that story. Oh, and you just wanted to bring it up just to confuse the rest of the audience. Okay, I see. That's your ploy.
Just a little quick housekeeping. All these people are in line for questions, and that's going to, right? No?
What the hell are you saying?
These will be the last questions we can take.
What, we got to leave? It's 12:30.
Here's what we're going to do.
Who wants to leave?
For DVD purposes.
Anybody? Fuck you.
I have not taken a question from a lady yet.
For DVD,
there's got to be a lady
That's the story of your life, Tommy.
He's got to do it, folks. He
gave it to me. He gave it to me.
Tell you what, we'll do this. For DVD purposes, we'll close it out in about 13 minutes, and then if you want to continue, Jim, we can continue.
Well, I don't want to go anywhere unless they want me to. You want me to leave? No. All right. And I got DVDs at home that have 4-hour movies on them. What kind of cheap, shitty equipment you got around here at Mickey Mouse Place? Doors that won't open, tables that won't separate. Anyway, and Scooter Leslie, ladies and gentlemen, Greenville, South Carolina's own Scooter Leslie.
Hey, Jim, how you doing? I don't know where Tommy went. He left. So anyway, the question I've got is whose idea was the angle for the Midnight Express and what they called the original Midnight Express, and for you to be hit with the telephone on television, and Paulie Dangerously comes in, and you had a feud there. That was a tremendous thing on television. I'm sure it was a ticket-selling machine after it was over with, to say the very least. But I'd like to know the mastermind behind that whole thing and how that came about.
Well, now you've buried me, because now when I say it's my idea, then I look like I'm an egotistical prick of the mastermind. But it was my idea. But it wasn't a ticket-selling machine, because that happened. Oh, we've lost some people off the front row. Now you really know you're dragging. Maybe I should leave when the DVD's done. It didn't sell any tickets, because right as we did it, that's when Turner Broadcasting had bought Jim Crockett out. And the thing, we ended up being an opening match on a couple of shows, and the thing got lost in a transition, and then Dusty got fired, and Dusty had been behind it, because I basically the story is I went to Dusty, me and Bobby and Stan all went to Dusty, because Paulie, Continental, Alabama had closed down. Paulie had been doing the original Midnight Express thing with Randy Rose and Dennis Condrey. They didn't have a place to go, and we didn't have anybody to wrestle. We had just kind of turned babyface against the Road Warriors, and we didn't really have anything to do, so we weren't going to make any splash on the cards with no opponents, and they didn't have any place to go, so we went to Dusty, and he acquiesced to do it. Then Dusty got fired, and Jimmy Crockett was the booker, and Jimmy Crockett was still kind of mad at Dennis for leaving before, but he also didn't like Randy Rose. But then they hired George Scott, that bumblefuck. He was a complete idiot. It was his idea not to promote the Clash of Champions live on national television, because it might hurt the house shows when they're trying to fight WrestleMania. So then he got canned. In the meantime, the whole angle went to shit. So it was probably the only thing we've ever done that had a very memorable beginning and fizzled out to a complete popcorn fart at the end in the space of 3 months. But it was a great idea and great concept, and golly gee whiz, you know, the first couple of weeks on TV were gorgeous, and then it went straight down to Porcelain Throne. And once again, like the answer to the question I just gave.
Hey Jim, Dan from Hagerstown, Maryland.
If that is your real name.
Some of the funniest stories that I've ever heard involve the Iron Sheik. Do you have any that you could share?
Okay. Well, actually, it's good we have a stool here. One time a Sheik comes in, pardon me ladies for the language, the Sheik comes in one night, he's telling the story. He was at a bar the night before, and he's sitting on a stool at the bar, right? And he gets up to go to the bathroom. And as he's telling the story, I come back, there is a woman sitting on my stool. I go up to her, I say, look, bitch, you're sitting on Sheik's stool. Sheik drinking at this bar. You're sitting in Sheik's stool. You must move. She tells Sheik, go fuck himself. I say, I am former WWF champion. Iron Sheik, work out hard, do the clubs. You get out of Sheik's stool. She tells Sheik, go away. I grab her, I give her short clothesline. She fall down from stool, go boom. What? The Sheik, I'm not sure what's going on in Sheik's, but I heard something in the Observer like he locked himself in a taxi cab last week or something and wouldn't get out. They had to, you know, I don't know, but I've always liked Sheik. I always had a good time around him. He's always a nice guy, never had any problems. He's a little bit different, but the Dennis Corluzzo, my old friend, you know, rest in peace, God bless him, he would bring Sheik up to a lot of his shows, and he'd put him on the card just for the entertainment purposes, and then he'd get Sheik to make prank phone calls. One time he tried to call me when I was living in Tennessee, and he misdialed a number, and he got this old woman to say, there ain't no damn Jim here. Leave me alone. Go. Yeah, get up. So then he saved that number, and he would call that woman constantly. And it would send her into spasms and fits. Then he started tape recording it. He even did a CD, even with a rap mix of prank phone calls to the old lady. God damn you, I reported you to the FBI. There ain't no damn Jim here. So then he'd get everybody new for like a week to just call 4 times a day, 6 times a day. Is Jim there? Is Jim there? And she'd hang up. And then finally after a week, he'd get somebody to call up and say, hi, this is Jim. Has there been any messages for me? So then he gets the Sheik to call the old lady. And the Sheik, I don't even think, realized that he wasn't really trying to call me. I am Sheik. I want to know what Jim is. I need to talk to Jim. Is Jim there? This is Sheik. I'm former WWF. Ain't no goddamn Jim here. But the Sheik, I want to talk to Jim, you know. He made me a CD. I've got different cuts. I've got remixes. I've got a rap mix with a beat behind it. Is Jim there?
Ain't no goddamn gym here. No goddamn gym here. No goddamn gym here.
Are you ready for another? It actually sold 3 copies. No Insane Clown Posse.
What an honor. What an honor. This is Dave from Atlanta. Jim, on one of your shoot DVDs, you didn't comment then, but I was wondering if you'd comment now, the Katie Vick angle and the Al Wilson angle.
The Al Wilson angle. Is that kind of like, am I got the repressed memory like the guy that got butt fucked by Michael Jackson? Because I don't, that must have been so bad, I don't remember it.
You've got the repressed memory. That was the one where, which one of the divas was going to marry Tori Wilson's dad for money? Don Marie. And then they kill off Al Wilson. It was really bad.
Oh, he had a heart attack or a stroke or something, right? Or what? I didn't watch that shit.
And then they memorialized him.
I didn't. That was during one of those other periods of time where I'd watch something else that I didn't like, so I didn't watch it. But, Katie, I don't know. I can't give you an explanation of anybody that would think that anybody wanted to see that shit. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I can't even make it funny because it's sad. I don't know.
Let's close it with...
Oh, we got to do the fake finish now. You gave me 3 entrances, and then we got to do a fake finish. Watch, I'll mess with you. I'll just leave and won't come back, and then they'll all beat you up. Maybe,
Are you ready?
Maybe you won't. Maybe your time to go.
Are you ready for another question?
I'm ready for another question, and then we'll do the close, and then we'll take an audience vote by show of hands if you want me to stay the fuck out. Okay.
All right, Mr. Cornette. We got to really know your real feelings on the Insane Clown Posse.
No, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Last year was January of 2004. I was here, and these guys, I mean, come on, let's face it. Rap and music are mutually exclusive terms. It's like government intelligence and jumbo shrimp. To me, I can't stand the shit. It's not that I don't like black music. It's I don't like bad music. It's old school, new school. I love Earth, Wind & Fire. They're my favorite group. I don't like rap. But more importantly than that, I don't like people who, once again, invade somebody else's line of work and make a joke out of it. Not only do these yahoos try to wrestle badly, but also they got a hold of a Japanese tape that I saw one time that hopefully none of you saw because it wasn't that widely distributed. But they took one of... Victor Quinones had a piece of it. One of the offices in Japan, they took one of their tapes and revoiced it, revoicing over guys like Cactus Jack, and I think Terry Funk was on it, and some other guys, and giving them comedy names and doing comedy commentary, and it's a joke. When that idiot Vince Russo insisted that they be on Raw, because for some reason Vince Russo thought that if the Insane Clown Posse, a bunch of guys that think they're singers, that paint themselves up and wear funny clown costumes and have crackhead dwarves and drunken midgets and people that stutter and a guy with Tourette's syndrome. Wow, people are going to really want to watch that on a wrestling program. So meanwhile, we're sitting across the hallway from their dressing room. They ensconced all these misfits in the same fucking room so nobody else would have to look at them. And by the way, you want to smell of a gag of maggot off a gut wagon, go in their locker room after that whole crew is left. It stunk like the crotch of Oprah Winfrey's pantyhose, okay? So they put them on television. We're sitting in the locker room across the hall from them, and the guy with Tourette's is going, oh shit! And the crackhead dwarf is beep, 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 and they're playing their music. It's Jesus Christ. What that had to do with wrestling, I don't know. The point is, I don't go to where they work and slap the Slurpee machine out of their hand. So what do they got to make a joke out of wrestling for? And to me, that was against the spirit of why everybody was here last time, which was to celebrate wrestling and enjoy wrestling and see the people that they really admired as wrestlers, not to have these guys come in who they had already sent word they were going to try to get my goat and ask some questions and make a scene so they could put it on their website for the rest of the freaky morons that listen to their shitty music. So basically, fuck them and fuck anybody that looks like them, is what I have to say. That's why I don't like them.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. James E. Cornette.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Actually, he and Nolte were out last night very late. I don't know what happened.
I see the tapes are out, Jim. They're out this time.
Yes! You were in Tampa, obviously. Yeah. Where'd Howard go? I'm over here. Howard! Oh, there you are. I can't. That's Howard Brody. Oh, but by the way, former NWA President Howard Brody, formerly of Tampa, Florida, now Charlotte. Stand up, Howard. Take a bow. A mild smattering of applause for the former NWA President.
And the crowd goes mild.
And the crowd goes mild. He wanted me to inform you that at his merchandise table, which was visited very seldom today, he does have a 6-volume set of the greatest Midnight Express matches from our career. First match, last match, all the matches in the middle, Charlotte Coliseum, Greensboro Coliseum, matches that have never been on television, all for a very, very low price. It's a very agreeable set of tapes that you'll want to purchase from former NWA President Howard Brody. And if you buy a lot of stuff, maybe he'll leave tomorrow and you won't have to put up with him on Sunday.
Howard, your table is right next to Ivory and Molly Holly. How can you have bad sales with a table right next to Ivory and Molly Holly?
Everybody was looking that way. And he continues to fall flat. Mark Nolte, ladies He wants to play music and introduce me. I'm already in the room. Have you seen it?
It's for the DVD.
Yeah.
It's for the DVD.
I'll be back here like 20 minutes.
I tell you what, everybody, if you would work with me. And when they play the music, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go outside. Are they ready to play the music? Okay. I'm going to walk out the door. I know it's late. Work with me. Act like you haven't seen me yet. Stand up and scream and make noise and clap and applaud for the literally dozens of people that are going to see this DVD. Just act like I haven't been here, you haven't seen me, you didn't realize I was here, and I suddenly came out. Maybe you thought I wasn't even going to be here. Maybe they circulated the rumor that, my God, he ain't showing up. So when I come out, it's also a huge sigh of relief followed by tremendous applause, okay? Okay, boy, you did a great job of warming them up, thanks. I'm going out here, play the music. I'm out here now.
Lock the door! You're not here!
Before we get started, just a couple of quick announcements.
What? I almost herniated myself trying to close that door. Anybody got a towel?
Lock the door!
Cornette enters, take 3.
All right, act like you haven't seen me twice.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist.
Oh, hell with it. Have it out, rip the carpet, don't tell anybody. Jesus.
Very quickly, like to remind everyone that highspots.com has their tables here. You can order not only tonight's Q&As in advance, but also you can get the ones from Thanksgiving and previous ones. Is that okay, Michael? Excellent. Also like to remind everyone to visit thewrestlingclassics.com. We'll have Jack Briscoe tomorrow signing his books and his DVDs. So we ready to do the third one?
Some money tomorrow. Wait a minute, here's a coupon for free breakfast. Okay, and wait a minute, hold on. Here's some Carmex, good lip balm for you, in case you need a kiss in the ass after you do a bad job tomorrow. Okay, are we done with this thing, or you want to do an encore? There was a tepid response. How about anybody that has to go to bed leave, and I'll do a couple more minutes for anybody that has no life. I don't care, it's whatever you want.
Anybody got any questions for Jim? More Sheik stories.
I've done enough Sheik stories. Sheik is a story. Sheik is a story unto himself because he is on Sheik, former WWF champion. I'll tell you this though, when they first started drug testing in the WWF, they tested Sheik, right? They call him in the office. He comes in and says, Sheik, unfortunately, you've tested positive. Oh, I knew it. Sheik is positive. Yes, this is good. I knew Sheik would be. No, Kazra, you don't understand. That's bad. He said, what? Positive is bad? How can Sheik is good? Sheik is positive. Sheik always positive. I'm just over here, Tommy. I'm not going to get too close to that stool right now. No, you drinking? Never. He admits it.
I was wondering, you talked a little bit earlier about kind of the dying art of managers and the decline of managers. I was wondering, firstly, what are your thoughts on kind of the Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, Eric Bischoff type heel character more or less taking the heel manager's spot? Like, do you think that's a fair comparison?
Well, I think, gosh, how do I answer all of those? With Eric Bischoff, he's a competent television personality, a totally incompetent wrestling promoter, but a competent television, he's a decent promo, and it's really easy to really dislike Bischoff because he is a smarmy asshole. So he was effective in that role, and Vince, to me, and I'm not sucking up to anybody, obviously, from the tone of this conversation we've had, I'm not really sucking up to too many people, but Vince McMahon's a great performer. He's a great interview, and he's got the Buddy Rogers strut, and he's a 56-year-old billionaire, and he and Ric Flair had a match on pay-per-view a couple years ago. It was the best match on the show. So Vince is a great performer, and Shane falls off high stuff real good. But once again, I have a problem. I think logically, I believe I do, and I have a problem, as Bill Watts taught me, and I've had conversations with him about this. I don't believe the promotion should be heels. I have a problem with the logic, because if the promotion sanctions crooked behavior, then why do I want to watch their television show, or why do I want to buy a ticket to support the crooked behavior? It seems to me that the heels get heat by working outside the periphery and the boundaries of the rules and the bylaws and etc., and by ignoring the officials. And if the promotion sanctions the behavior or is involved in the crooked behavior, then to me the heels don't get heat, the promotion does. So I never understood the heel promoter thing. Vince made it work. Bischoff just did it because he wanted to get his face on television, I think. But I think in the long run it takes credibility away from, but once again, examine what I just said. I'm not sure that credibility is important these days to the audience that is now watching sports entertainment. I think credibility is probably important as wrestling fans to a lot of folks in here in varying degrees. You want the promotion to be credible. You want to know when they say that they're going to do something, or that you're going to see a match, that you're going to see it, or they're going to do it. And you want some logic to the show, and you want, you don't want people getting title matches out of nowhere, or, just illogical shit. You don't want that to happen, because then it hampers you kind of following the story. But for a lot of people in Iowa that just work at the gas station and maybe just want to watch the pay-per-view, maybe it's not as important. But to me, it bothers me. It's one of those things that kept me out of the good schools.
How's it going?
Evidently not too fucking good from the judge of that last sound of silence we heard.
I'm from Atlanta, and I got two real good friends in Atlanta. You gave me your opinion on one, Vince Russo.
Wait a minute, you're the one?
I'm the one.
That's his friend?
We found his friend.
Holy shit, that's like finding Amelia Earhart.
And the other one was, I was wondering what your opinion was on the late Ray Traylor.
Well, I tell you what, I will actually forgive you for liking Vince Russo for asking that question. Bubba was a great guy. He was a great talent. He was a good friend. I always enjoyed every time I was around him. I don't know that that anybody had anything bad to say about him, and obviously everybody was upset to hear about what happened just out of nowhere, and that's one of the reasons why when I answered the question, a little while ago about doing some stuff with the Midnight Express, not to say hopefully none of us is going to, pass on anytime soon, but you never know, because Bubba was I never got used to calling him Ray, because, he was Bubba, but he was a fucking hoot. But, he was, 40? 42, yeah, because he was the same age as me, which was so funny, because there he was and there I was when we were together. We were the same age, so, you never know what's going to happen. There was no real rhyme or reason to it, but he was a great guy, and we miss him, and that's the one thing. When we did the first Midnight Express reunion last year in Philadelphia, where Bobby, Dennis, Stan, and myself were all together for the first time, that's the only thing that was missing, and it would have been so great if he had been there, and when we talked about him in Philly that night, if you saw the DVD, but, that would have made it complete. It wasn't really the same thing without him, and I'd love for him to be able to do some of these shows with us now.
How do you feel how the WWE killed the Muhammad Hassan gimmick? And do you play tennis?
Wait, hold on it. Don't add up. Second part first. Actually, no, I don't play tennis. Really, the racket was just to get some reach on the people that wanted to beat the shit out of me. Once again, we talked about the Arabian, East Indian, whatever type of thing. They got enough heat. It's enough heat that the guy's got a prayer rug and a camel on his trunks and a turban. And that's another thing. After 9/11, what do you think some of these people get a fucking baseball cap? You go to the airport, they got the whole gimmick on. Come on, please. Good heavens. Don't make 375 people on a Delta Airlines jet shake like a dog shitting peach seeds because you want to wear your kind of headdress. Get a fucking New York Yankees cap for 3 hours, you sack of shit. But, everybody on the plane, their buttholes are clenching up the daggum seat cushions because this one guy wants to wear his Homeland's outfit, for God's sake. But anyway,
then complain when he gets checked at security. Then he complains and wants to sue when he gets checked at security.
Okay, but anyway, thank you for bringing a complete end to that comedy routine. But anyway, bottom line is, it's enough heat that he's Arab. A lot of people, and I don't know what the decision-making process was. I was not there. Don't know whose idea it was. Don't know what the heck was going on. Can't figure it out myself. But there were German Nazi heels in wrestling, and there were Japanese heels in wrestling 15 years after World War II was over. They started popping up in the late 50s. And even then, it was questionable whether you want to, but they never said World War II. And the ones that did went too far. There was the famous story, and this is a true quote from the story that I've heard. In the 60s, Waldo von Erich uttered that immortal phrase on television, which is apropos of the Muhammad Hassan thing. He gets on television and the guy actually says, he's doing a German Nazi gimmick. He actually says, what's the difference between an apple pie and a Jew? An apple pie doesn't scream when you put it in the oven. TV, instantly, the whole TV show, Promotion Lost TV. I think it was in Buffalo or somewhere.
Buffalo.
You can't do that shit. You can't do that shit. They were wearing the German shit and doing the da-da-da like
the Gestapo gimmick.
15 years after the war was over, and you still couldn't do shit like that because nobody wants to hear that. Well, right now, people are still getting killed. Americans are still over there trying to make some sense out of that goddamn place, or just either that or just get out alive, one or the other. We broke it, now we bought it, whatever you think of it. I subscribe to the Michael Rennie School of Foreign Policy, the day the earth stood still. He lands right out in front of the Pentagon and he says, look, you stupid bastards, I don't care what you do amongst yourselves, but now you have the power to reach the stars. And therefore I have been sent as an emissary to come down and tell you that since you can now harm us, if you don't stop your shit, we will blow your whole fucking planet up. Fuck you, get your shit straight. Right? They didn't come over and bomb the place, and then restructure it and put a new government in, and they still don't have electricity that works. So we got a bunch of our soldiers over there getting shot at by these morons, and the whole thing stinks. So the point is, you're watching wrestling on television, you don't need to think about this. And you don't need to have somebody try. I didn't see it, once again. I'm not speaking first-hand information, but I heard they tried to behead somebody or something. No. It's the apple pie joke updated. You can't do that. People don't want to see it. It's in bad taste. In wrestling, you have to do bad taste in good taste. And that wasn't it to me. People don't want to see that, obviously, because they ain't going to see it now. So I don't know what was going on there. But it's not like that somebody couldn't have just figured that out ahead of time. I don't know how that got by.
Hey, Jimmy, Mark Davis from Springfield, Missouri. First of all, I want to thank you for your career from all the people in Ozark Mountains of Missouri.
I'm finished already.
Well, no, I hope you ain't done yet. No. Hope you're not done yet. But two things. I was hoping about your opinions on Flying Brian Pillman and your opinion on Road Warrior Hawk.
Good question. Brian, I liked, he was weird, he was demented. I liked that about him. Because, a lot of times we would talk on the phone, and I'm not saying we were best friends, we talked every day. I'm not trying to place myself in that category, but he would call me every once in a while, I would call him, a couple of times a year when we weren't in the same place. One time, I was doing a radio interview in Eastern Kentucky when I was in Smoky Mountain, and he was driving somewhere back to Cincinnati and heard the radio show. He called me up because of some line that he liked that I can't remember. And we would talk about shit, and he would, as Adrian Street once said, he would take the piss out of people. He was funny, he would knock them, take the piss out of them, knock people who were inflated a little bit too much, stick them with a pin. And, I enjoyed working with him and Tom Zink. I don't know where Tom is these days, but I don't think he'll probably disagree when I say that we were primarily working with Brian. Tom was over there trying to figure out which one of his boots he'd put on the wrong way, or whatever. I'm not saying he was fucked up, just saying he was stupid. But Brian was fun to work with, and we did that one angle where we put the racket over his throat and Bobby and Stan did the Vegematic on him. And of course, there's a story I've told before that we wanted to capitalize, and Brian was in full agreement with this. He'd had the kid, besides the fact that he walked on as a football player, not very big, and made it to the Bengals and all the athletic things he'd done in his life, he had 33 throat operations on his throat, that scar there, before he was like 3 or 4 years old. And that was a story they'd never told on television. I thought, my God, what a baby face. That he, as a child, he overcame 30-something operations on his throat, and imagine what he had to go through, and that's why he had the raspy voice. And what pricks that we are, that we know this. We found his weakness, and we put the racket and the Vegematic, and now he can't talk, and he wants to get even. Classic, baby face coming back to get revenge. And Jim Barnett says, well, don't do that. Why? Well, and I'm not speaking ill of the dead. I like Jim Z. I got my nickname from him, James Z. But it'll make him look weak. I said, no, it'll make him look sympathetic. No, it'll make him look weak. So they took the commentary off the show to not talk about his operations, and we didn't follow up on the angle. We just did a move on him, and that made him mad, and they tried to come back and get us. So it cut the guts out of the angle. And Barnett had said, if it doesn't draw, blame me. And I saw him a couple months later. I said, well, it didn't draw, and I blame you. With Hawk, once again, it was fun working with those guys. Maybe not for Bobby and Dennis. Because they beat the piss out of the Midnight Express. But the thing is, they were new at the time, and they were big, and they were strong, and plus we had the dubious distinction of working with the Road Warriors the first time Crockett ran their gimmick hometown, which was Chicago, and their real hometown, which was Minneapolis. So there was 10,000 people in the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago. We're in the ring, they hit that Iron Man music, and here come the Road Warriors, first time they've been with the NWA in their gimmick hometown. And you could see the goosebumps on their arms when they were coming down the aisle. And Dennis looked and said, we're going to get that shit kicked out of us. And they did. And then in Minneapolis, they had all their gym buddies there, right? Everybody from the gyms, they weren't going to sell shit. But they were great to work with. And Hawk, I had to deal with him on Crockett's plane. I've told this story. Jimmy Crockett had they bought it at the secondhand plane store. Out of Planes R Us, I don't know. You know, and it made funny noises. Tommy remembers it, if you remember anything at all. It made funny noises, and it was a converted Gulfstream that used to be a commuter plane, and then they put, captain's chairs in it. It was comfortable for the time, but the point is, I always sat next to Hawk, because I hate to fly, and I don't fly anymore. But I had a deal with him. I said, Hawk, if anything happens, I want you to hit me as hard as you can. Be certain that something is happening, but if it does hit, because I don't want to know, right? So he's, don't worry, Jimmy, I'll knock you out. And I loved him. I thought he worked for me in Knoxville at Smoky Mountain. We did a big house, and once again, the same thing. We could have done a Midnight Express and Road Wars match, and that ain't going to happen now. And then so I want to see we do a lot of these before we can't anymore. Anyway.
Hi, Sandra Walters, Huntsville, Alabama. I don't watch much of the news stuff, but I have noticed that over the course of one show, tag teams can change 3 times and titles even more often. Do you believe there's anyone in Vince McMahon's company right now, other than the obvious, Jericho, Benoit, the good guys, that have a chance of being a real tag team?
Well, yeah, see, the thing is, a lot of people have a chance of being a great tag team. A lot of guys haven't had a lot of experience wrestling tag team matches. The good thing is when Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey got together, when Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, or Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, or, you go on down the line, they had already had a lot of experience both in singles matches and tag team matches with other people. So you could do some elementary stuff. I see we're starting to lose people, so we will wind up here in a minute. Either that or everybody just all of a sudden your bladders got full at the same time. You can do simple tag team stuff until you get used to the guy you're teaming with, right? A lot of guys haven't had a lot of experience in tag team matches, and plus, tag team matches now are 6 minutes. You can't have a tag team match in 6 minutes. Not even a good one on television, really not a competitive one. Tag team matches usually last 15 or 20 minutes where you could tell a story, and that's not to say that longer is always better. Sometimes longer can be the shits, right? Because if something ain't any good anyway, you make it longer, generally it's not going to improve it. But if you have guys that know what they're doing, longer is better. So yes, some guys could be a good tag team. Some guys you don't even think could be a good tag team can be a good tag team if given the opportunity. Don't make me haul it out of my ass right now. I'm trying to work with you here. I mean, the thing is you never can tell, because until you team 2 guys up and until you put them together and until you have them go out and beat people to establish credibility, and you have the announcers talk about how good they are, and you have them back it up by not trying to overreach themselves and doing some simple shit they can do right until they get better, and then inventing stuff from there, and then they win a championship, and then they get a track record, and then in 2 years or 3 years, they've got history and credibility, and then the announcers have really sold them, and then somebody else turns and they get put in a main event spot. That makes a great tag team. If you just put you and you together and send you out 3 weeks to row on television and you beat somebody people don't care about anyway, that don't make a great tag team. That makes, we're going to fill up Seg 7 before we go to the break and do the angle. So you can't say that people couldn't be a good team, because anybody can if they've got it in them and if you bring it out of them.
Was there ever a combination that you saw put together that surprised you? You either thought this is a bad combination that turned out to be great, or you looked at a couple of guys, boy, this has a chance to be a great combination that never clicked?
Actually, with an asterisk, everybody. Thrill Seekers, the original Thrill Seekers, Jericho and Lance Storm, they were a good team. They were so young then and they were inexperienced, and you couldn't get them to slow down. They were jumping all over the place. They were running off and leaving the people. And that's what happens a lot of times. You get a hardcore internet crowd that's up on every move and knows the Japanese, and I know there's a couple guys from Japan here, and I guarantee you that the Ring of Honor fans probably know more Japanese than they do. Because they live it on the internet. They live their lives around what's the name of this move and the name of that move. So the Ring of Honor guys, they get in and they bang, 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 bang. And they're working hard, and the people know all these names of all these moves and everything, but the average fan, you can run off and leave them, because they want to have time to digest the move they just saw. They want to see the guy sell. Oh my God, he's broken my neck. Oh, I'm in pain. I'm reaching out. I need help. They don't want people doing so many moves that they can't register them, that they can't sell them, that you can't contemplate or figure out what's happened. You run off and leave the people when you go too fast. Storm and Jericho would go too fast because they were young and excited and everything. And they didn't really sell a lot of tickets, draw any money then. But they sure got a foundation. And later on, I think Chris Jericho is a tremendous talent, one of the best in the WWE. And Lance Storm was a great trainer for us in OVW, now has opened up his own wrestling school in Calgary. So, you know, they were just young kids. So the team wasn't real successful, but it wasn't because they were the shits or anything. With M&M, Johnny Nitro and Joey Matthews, I knew they were going to be a good team. We put them together, but I didn't know how good they were going to be. I never dreamed they'd be as good as they ended up being. And Joey Matthews deserves a lot of the credit for that. And Nitro, you know, we used to say if him and Melina were sitting in the room and a cat walked in, the IQ level would go up 35 points. They just neither one. No, seriously, they worked hard and nice people, but they weren't getting it. Johnny wanted to do all these flips and break dancing in the middle of the ring, and Melina could miss her cue if you held up a 3x5 foot poster and said this is your cue. But all of a sudden, boom, the light bulb went on, and that's what I'm saying. It can happen anytime. And Johnny Nitro, of all the Tough Enough winners, is the only one that's really gotten over and been on national television. And Melina, all of a sudden, got it just like that, and she hits her cue, and she's one of the stars of the team. And Matthews, who was the only one who started out without a contract, that it took him forever to sign, that they didn't want him, they wanted to put somebody else to team. He was the one that captained the ship and made them all together get it. So they ended up being much better than I ever thought they'd be. I mean, there's all kinds of teams like that, but that's just a couple of examples.
Hi, Jim. Crystal from Atlanta. Got two questions for you. The first one, is there any tag team, past or present, that you... tag team or individual that you would really like to work with that you haven't? And second part, do you have any funny stories about Bill Dundee?
The tough little Aussie. Bill Dundee, actually, I learned a lot from Dundee. I'll answer that one first. I learned a lot from Dundee because he was the booker in Memphis when I got into business. He was also the booker in Louisiana. He took a lot of the great Tennessee finishes down to Louisiana for Watts, who used his promotional genius to make logical sense out of an illogical situation, and those things got over. But Dundee was, I'll tell you one thing, he was stiff to work with. Ricky Morton used to tell Dundee, he'd walk in, he'd say, Bill, when the match starts, I want you to just ball your fist up and punch me in the face as hard as you can. And Dundee would say, what do you want me to do that for, Punky? And Ricky said, because your working punches are killing me. He would grab you. I wore the ties, right? I didn't wear a clip on. I wore a real one. I learned, but he'd grab you by the tie and he'd just punch you in the side of the head as hard as, and he'd hit me so hard I couldn't fall down. I couldn't figure out which way it was. And he'd say, are you all right? And I say, yeah, I'm okay. And then he'd hit me again, just as... I mean, but he was a great talent. He never really caught on anyplace else as a wrestler. Maybe it was size, and maybe it's just he spent so long in Tennessee. But in Tennessee, he was a great baby face and really was over. And his promos were funnier as a heel because he got a chance to be more of himself, which is a prick. A funny prick, but a prick. But, his babyface stuff was a little dry, but he was great to work with. And what was the other part of the question?
Who would you like to have managed, past or present?
We never got a chance because of the promotional dissimilarities. Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, I think, would have been great with the Midnight Express. That was probably the only team in the WWF that I can think of that really the Midnight Express would have liked to have worked with over any of the teams in the NWA because our styles would have been great,
Who would you like to have managed, past or present, that you didn't get a chance to? Actually, well... I didn't hear that.
Handsome Jimmy Valiant, the boogeyman. My God, I could go back to Strangler Lewis just to say I did it, I think realistically, I never got a chance. I was at ringside a time or two with him and managed a couple of times against him, but for all the time that we spent with Ric Flair, I never really got to work out there with him a lot. Because when you think about it, Flair was almost never in tag team matches, and if he was, it was against like Dusty and Magnum or what, our programs never crossed. So the one tag match, straight tag team match that we ever had against Ric Flair was on that one Clash of Champions from Chattanooga. It was Flair and Barry Windham against Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, and me and JJ on opposite sides. When we did the deal with Tully and Arn, Rick wasn't a part of that. I managed Bobby Eaton twice against Ric Flair on television world title matches. And otherwise than that, we were in the locker room every night. We were on the airplanes every day. But I never got a chance to work with Ric Flair. And I would love to have managed him. Not that Flair needed a manager. This is totally self-serving. But just to say that I could have managed Ric Flair would have been a big deal for me as a fan. And, you know, there's a lot of guys. I could go down a list, you know, that I would have liked to have worked with. But, I mean, I think I liked who I managed more than wanting to manage somebody else. I would have liked to worked against more people. You know, some of the guys I never got a chance to work with. But I never worked against Bobby Heenan until the Ring of Honor just this past year. All the time that we've both been in the business, our paths never crossed. So, and that was a big thrill for me as a fan. So, you know, you could go down a list and say a lot of people in the wrestling business, but I got a chance to work with more than a lot of good guys. So,